Alright. Go ahead and continue exploring. I think what we first have here is an optional path. Looks like a bathroom door. It's a Japanese-style toilet. Yeah, the old style, the kind you squat over. Fortunately, despite the condition of the apartment building in general, it seems to be a modern, fully functioning, non-septic model, without any foul smell.
水は出るのかな。大きな音で水が流れ出しても怖いな。
Didn't you say you had to go to the
なんで
bathroom?
こ
What?
んなに
You're
おしっこしたいんだろう。
gonna let
体
that
調の
stop
せい。
you?
ダメ。このままじゃ漏れちゃう。
Sneaking into a deceased woman's abandoned apartment and using her bathroom. It was kind of absurd, but I almost felt like I was infiltrating the deepest chambers of an enemy base.
緊張して出ないや。
Um. With what sounded like my own relieved voice echoing back at me from the walls, I thought I'd finally done my business, but my bladder still felt completely full.
私まだしてないのに。
It's not that time of the month, is it?
天井から漏れてるわけでもないのに。
As if accompanying the loud bubbling sound, the dull squish of a blade cutting into flesh was also faintly audible. It immediately brought to mind somebody slitting their wrists. Oh. Okay.
Yamamura さんの話だと、篠崎真希菜はすでに亡くなっているってことだけど。生活用品とか当時のままみたい。
Appliances are completely
篠
intact.
崎真希菜が亡くなった後、誰もここに入らなかったのかしら。やっぱり怖いよ。
Okay, that turns on our flashlight. On the tiny kitchen table sat numerous prescription bags and instructions. The name written on every bag was Makina Shinozaki.
やはり篠崎真希菜の家で間違いないようね。
What was that? There was a photo hanging from the freezer door. Oh. Though blurry and hard to make out, it seemed to be of a forest thick with mist, along with one additional detail that made it much worse.
私は大丈夫。私は大丈夫。やっぱり帰りたい。怖いよ。手がかりって言ったって。見当もつかないけど、マキナさんの遺品をできるだけ持ち帰ってみよう。
what. In the corner formed by the wall, the refrigerator, and the sink, there's an extremely disturbing amount of mold growing. Just breathing the air from nearby feels hazardous to one's health. There aren't really any signs of food anywhere, however. Maybe Machina didn't eat much. Oh, just shows us this again. Doesn't see anything of note on the shelves. Items lying about can be obtained by examining them. There may be hidden compartments or spaces in shelves and such as well, so be sure to examine everything very carefully. Something lying on the table. Okay, we got batteries. Now I think that earlier, yeah, there is an infinite battery option, which eliminates the need to keep finding them to power the flashlight. I don't think it even affects anything. I think it's probably just a self-imposed challenge for the battery. What's this? It's a small white box made of paper. So small, in fact, it can fit in the palm of my hand with room to spare. It was light as a feather, too. This thing gives me the creeps. The drawers seem to contain only insurance documents, as well as an official name stamp. Photographs. The top photograph on the stack depicted a young woman with a hairstyle decidedly not of the modern era. The next photograph showed a different woman, smiling widely. Her clothes were actually quite beautiful, and her eyes looked almost lifelike on the paper, like they could suck you in. I flipped through each of the remaining pictures, seeing mostly more of the same, until... Machina, Rocky, and Yoshi in Yokohama. Right. Okay, now let's open it. Another bird skeleton? Closed my eyes and put my hands together, saying a little prayer for the poor animal. I then left the box where it lay and got back to my feet. Now it's this. In the middle of the room, a twin-sized futon was neatly laid out. Its top cover was convexed, just as it would be if someone were sleeping beneath it. In fact, that's exactly what it looked like, almost unmistakably. Oh boy. And right on top of it sat a perfect cube of a box, about 10 centimeters across on all sides, and bright red like a Shinto torii gate. which would have been a lot more interesting if I weren't still scared out of my mind by the thought that there might have been someone under that cover this whole time. Oh, what the heck? It's a silhouette of a human being. All black save for two perfectly round cutouts positioned halfway up the head, glinting with an unearthly light. There were no signs of life nor detail anywhere along the shadowy figure except in those eyes. But those eyes were very much alive. They were undeniably the eyes of a human. Oh, what was that in the mirror? As if in response to my worst fears, I suddenly caught sight of a small girl in a black dress, standing right before me. Hesitantly taking a closer look, it was actually me, reflected in the mirror. But not just me. There was a black shadow behind me, and it was coming closer. I panicked and whirled around, and my light immediately went out. I was completely shrouded in darkness, as if whatever I'd seen had fully enveloped me. Wait a sec. Okay. I stepped on something soft and squishy. Unconsciously, I paused for a split second, pondering what it may have been. But my de facto conclusion was, I don't care. I need to get the hell out of here. Oh. And now the door's locked. Feeling around the glass door's surface, I finally found what seemed to be a handle. I tried in vain to turn it, only to realize that I couldn't because... Oh. What? I didn't have to ask, though. I could feel it and see it. My right hand was being clasped shut by the tiny, ghostly hands of a white-hued child. I shook my arm violently, and the white apparition faded from sight. But my closed right hand still won't open. I had to get out of there. That was paramount. Clenched fist or no, I needed to leave before something worse happened. Panicked, I flung open the glass door. Oh, you're back here again. fell back, completely sick to my stomach. My heart was pounding so hard and so fast I was convinced I was going to have a heart attack and die. At the very least, I knew I was about to lose consciousness. Holy shit. As if to confirm just how done for I was, my nose began bleeding profusely. I had no doubt at all anymore. This was the end. Huh?
篠崎、おい、
Oh,
しっかりしろ。
well, your guys' timing was pretty good. Kishinuma moved my worn, limp body onto the tatami floor and carefully sat me up. I regained consciousness right away, and I was immediately met with the worried gazes of Kishinuma, Machida, and Nakashima.
無事でよかった。
Nakashima wiped tears from her eyes.
みんな
I was so relieved, so very relieved to see my friends. I started crying as well.
篠崎、なんでお前一人でこんなことしてんだよ。
私がやらなきゃいけないことだから。
何？
岸沼。サトシ。
ヨシキに任せよう。
私が始まりだから。
始まりって何のだよ。
全部私が悪いの。私のせいでみんないなくなって。お姉ちゃんはね。
I was sobbing like a baby. My face must have been a mess. My voice came out hoarse and in short bursts.
悪いって何が？
私が幸せの幸子さんなんておまじない持ってきたせいだよ。全部私が悪いんだから。
まさかお前一人で全部の責任を背負い込んでんじゃないだろうな。なあ、俺たちは仲間だろ、篠崎。じゃあよ、頼れよ。一人で突っ走んなよ。いいか、今ここではっきりさせといてやる。あんなもの絶対にお前のせいなんかじゃねえんだよ。
岸沼君。
お前は悪くない。だからそんな風に自分を責めんなよ。
Yoshiki's blunt, but it's pretty damn obvious how much he cares about her.
岸沼君。
少なくともここにいるみんなそう思ってるだろう。
ああ、ヨシキの言う通りだ。
そうだよ委員長。もう一人で抱え込まないで。私みんなをもう巻き込みたくないから自分で何とかしなきゃって。でも怖くて。
前はよく頑張ったよ。いいからもっと俺たちを頼れ。
バカってひどい。
Trying to shoulder all the burden
Na-
by herself.
いや、だからよ。
ありがとう。
I didn't entirely believe them. It was the fact that this whole mess started when I led everyone in this Tachiko ever after ritual. But I appreciated their words nonetheless.
こうなってしまった以上、残された俺たちはみんなでこの現実を受け止めていくしかないんだ。
受け入れるんじゃなくな。
ああ、少しでも良くしていくためにできることをする。
気持ちはみんな一緒だよ、委員長。
あなたは何もできなかったなんてことはないわよ。
Huh? I didn't recognize the voice at all, and was a little perturbed that no one else seemed startled by it. It belonged to a girl I'd never seen before, wearing an unusual outfit.
篠崎あゆみちゃんね。無事でよかったわ。
あなたは。
篠崎、お前がヤバいところに向かってるって、この場所を俺たちに教えてくれたのはこの人なんだ。丹羽愛子さんだ。
Aiko Niwa.
ごめんなさいね。いろいろと調べさせてもらったわ。私は情報や霊能関係に詳しいの。篠崎ひのえさんの妹さんなら、そうね、さえのきなほちゃんの友達といえばわかるかしら。
Oh, a friend of Naho.
ナホさんの？
Yeah.
お姉ちゃんのことも知ってるの？
ええ、あなたのお姉さんひのえさんはこちらの世界では有名人だったわ。あゆみちゃん、その右手開かないの？
My right hand had been clasped shut the whole time. I almost forgotten about it. I tried to open it again, but still couldn't.
見せてみろ。
Kishinuma grabbed my hand and tried to pry my fingers open.
無理に開ける必要はないわ。きっと時期が来たら自然に開く。その時を待ちなさい。あら、これは
Oh yeah, that red box. She attempted to open the box for just a moment, but her efforts proved to be in vain, just as mine were.
気になる箱ね。これも開かない。なるほどね。
Aiko was mesmerized by the unopening box. She seemed desperate to understand what force kept it sealed, almost giddy at the unspoken prospects of what it could mean.
ものすごい霊力。これはすごいわ。今晩預かっていいかしら。うちに戻れば開けられるかもしれない。
は
I had the feeling this was less a request than it was a statement. She would never have taken no for an answer.
まあ、今日はもう遅いから詳しい話は明日させてもらうわね。放課後会いに行くわ。
that night. After I returned home, I stood in front of my mirror and just kept trying to open my right hand. I put every bit of strength and energy I had into it. My fingers, it opened. Huh? Teeth? What the hell? What I found inside my heretofore closed hand were teeth? Human teeth from the looks of it. Very small baby teeth. 2 of them. The roots of each tooth were embedded deep within my palm, and I was bleeding quite a bit as a result. That's a good question. Well, that was the end of Chapter 0. Alright, we got our first foothold into this. I don't know, should I start Chapter 1? I'll at least start it, I think. Chapter 1, Returning. A day had passed since the events at Shimorin Jaku's South Apartments. This was to be a significant turning point for me, and Machida might have been a part of it from the start, except that fate seemed to have other plans for him.
クオン先生、俺今日は大事な用があって。
ダメ。サトシ君、昨日の唾液の小テスト、ちょっと残念な点数だったでしょ
Like an owner training a puppy, Kuon gave him a strong glare and held up her index finger in reprimand.
今から1時間、私の授業に集中しなさい。そうしたら、次の小テストも解けるようになるから。
先生って英語科でしょ？大気なんて専門外じゃ。
一生懸命教えるからできるよ。
She seemed a little taken aback by that remark, puffing up her cheeks like a chipmunk in protest.
いや、先生。クオン先生ってユイ先生そっくりだな。ごめんなさい。
Looking both bemused and guilty, Machida tried to get up and leave his seat in one swift motion, but he was quickly and easily caught, lifted up and forcefully sat back down.
ダメ。
Miss Kuon was smiling. She was actually enjoying this.
なんだこの先生。
Miss Kuon was only the slightest bit taller than Machida. This did make her taller than the average, but her arms were small and frail. There seemed to be no way she could possibly have lifted someone of his build. This whole situation was rather bewildering for him, and he made no attempt to hide his confusion.
さあ、始めるよ。
はい。
He had no other option. Apparently he was going to be studying algebra for the next hour, come hell or high water. Meanwhile, at a local cafe near the school, Kishinuma and I were sitting down to speak with Aiko Niwa, the informant who led my friends to me the previous night.
大丈夫？お腹でも痛いの？
responded with a dismissive gesture while continuing to rub my abdomen with my other hand. Ever since the previous night, I had this constant, unbearable urge to pee.
なんだろう。君怖い思いして過呼吸が続いたから体がおかしいのかな。ずっと膀胱が膨らんでる気がする。
何から話そうかしら。
Aiko tilted her head and stared at me, looking me up and down, seemingly judging my every mannerism, my every movement. It was making me feel really self-conscious. I covered my abdomen with both hands as if guarding it from her gaze.
昨日はありがとうございました。
いいえ、大したことはしていないわ。如月学園って案外広いのね。岸沼くんたちを探すのに少し手間取ってしまったわ。
Kishinuma and I stared at one another, still unsure of how to feel about this strange new addition to our entourage.
あゆみちゃん、岸沼くん。あなたたちって天神小学校の生還者よね。
So she knows about that. We pledged never to discuss Heavenly Host with anyone else, which we always assumed would be an easy promise to keep, but now, casually and out of the blue, here we were.
なんであんたそのことを。
あなたたち死後の世界に接してきたでしょう。通常人間には身につかないオーラの色をしているわ。私には見えるの。
Oh. Both Kishinuma and I were speechless. I just sat there staring at my palm, subconsciously trying to see my aura, I guess. Aiko was smiling at us triumphantly.
愛子さんは霊能関係の情報屋で奈穂さんのお友達なんですよね。
ええ、奈穂ちゃんに天神小学校の情報を提供したのは私。
Oh. The true source of the deaths and subsequent erasures that had turned our lives into a living nightmare was the Sachiko Ever After ritual posted on Naho's occult blog. I've been a fan of Naho's for quite some time, so when I saw that, I knew I had to try it out with my friends from Class 2-9. And as a result, half of those friends were now gone.
奈穂ちゃんが響先生のために霊能探偵をやっていたことは知っているわよね。
Yes.
はい。幸せの幸子さんの情報が掲載されてから失踪されたことも。
私はね、心霊スポットや霊能関係の情報を集めて、それを欲しがる人に有償で提供してきた。報酬はお金、もしくは私の興味をそそる霊具の類。相手によってふっかけ方も変えるけれど、まあギブアンドテイクよね。向こうは情報が欲しい、私はお金と霊具が欲しい。
Physically, Aiko was a very attractive young lady, but personality-wise, the jury was still out. Her words were calculated and emotionless. Her true intentions a mystery.
だから私は情報屋をやっているの。奈穂ちゃんもいいお客さんだったわ。あの子が最後に買ったのが天神小学校の情報。奈穂ちゃん、これで響先生の小説がなんとか賞を取れるってすごくはしゃいでた。
So how much does she know?
ねえ、教えてくれる？あなたたちの閉じ込められたあの異空間に奈穂ちゃんはいた？
Yes, she was.
奈穂さんは響先生と一緒に亡くなっていました。
I looked down as I answered. Despite everything she'd done, the memory of Naho's passing was still painful for me. She'd become one of Heavenly Host's lost souls, and gone completely berserk. In the end, I was the one who finished her off.
そう、やっぱりね。
Aiko seemed completely unaffected by this revelation. Her tone remained even, and her expression cold and distant. Honestly, I'd had about enough of her by this point. She was so devoid of empathy, it was almost offensive. I was genuinely starting to get pissed off.
平気なんですか？
残念だと思うわ。でも予想はついていたから、わざわざ取り乱す必要もないでしょ。
Kishinuma continued to stare intently at Aiko with his own brand of cold, emotionless eyes. He was oddly quiet, though his anger was palpable. I clenched my fist.
じゃ、この子はおまじないを一緒に行ったと思うんだけど、あっちにはいたかしら。
This girl. Oh, Sayaka. Yeah.
いえ、会ってないからわかりません。
Though she did have her own chapter in Book of Shadows, which we get to see her fade.
そう。
Aiko's expression was so unfaltering you could carve it in stone. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to say something.
ナホさんのことお客さんだなんて、そんなの友達って言わないと思います。
My voice was breaking with rage. But even if that hadn't been the case, my face must have read like a book. This icy bitch may have had only one expression, but I sure didn't.
あら、あなたは客って言葉に対して随分と偏見を持っているのね。取引を行う以上、私はそこに最大の誠意とクオリティを提供する。つまりそれがパートナーとしての信用で、フレンドシップにも負けないものだと思っているけれど。
そんなこと。
I had no idea what to say. It seemed like Aiko was used to this sort of thing. Her response felt carefully rehearsed, like a sales pitch. Finally, Kishinuma broke his silence.
あんたよ、昨日篠崎を助けてくれたことは感謝するけどよ、金やなんかの見返りのためにそんなろくでもない情報を拡散させるなんて旗迷惑だと思わねえのか。
情報は情報よ。それ自体に罪はないわ。道具と同じ。それをどう使うかは使い手の問題でしょ。その気になれば、その辺にあるコップでも人は殺せてしまうのよ。
なもん、詭弁じゃねえかよ。
あなたもそう思う？あゆみちゃん。
愛子さん、ごめんなさい。私はあなたの考え方嫌いです。無責任だと思います。
Her expression remained calm and collected overall, but her eyes blinked several times in rapid succession. It was the first outward sign of emotion we'd seen from her.
やれやれ、ひどい嫌われよね。慣れてるけど悲しいわ。
Aiko quickly shrugged off her sudden outburst and was back to her usual icy self.
天神症は俺らがぶっ壊してきたからいいけどよ。
An awkward tension filled the room, or at least our table.
じゃ、本題に入りましょうか。私があなたたちに近づいた理由、伝えたいことについて。
Aiko produced a thick, hardbound file folder from the light blue bag she brought with her. She opened it to reveal several documents of a questionable nature. Among them were what looked to be a family tree, as well as numerous pages featuring black magic symbology or images that look like tree branches.
黒魔術の文字対応表。篠崎家の家系図。
少しショッキングなことを伝えるわね。
Aiko was looking directly into my eyes now. Her gaze was fixed, intense, and unblinking.
さっき岸沼くんが言ったことだけれど、間違いよ。
あ？何がだよ。
天神小学校は壊れてなどいない。今もまだ存在し続けているのよ。これを見て。
Aiko placed the black and white photo on the table. It wasn't the clearest of pictures, but there was no doubt the location it depicted was Heavenly Host Elementary. In the picture, a small girl could be seen standing in one of those all too familiar hallways, holding a hatchet in her right hand.
天神小学校。
なんだよこれ。
やっぱりこれは私が念写したものよ。力が足りなくて少し不鮮明ではあるけれど、
A
今現在
thoughtograph.
のあの空間、天神小学校の様子。
一体どういうことなんですか？
Yes, elaborate. I can't even describe what was going through my head at that moment. I felt like I was about to burst. Aiko, however, remained calm as ever while recounting her story.
順を追って説明するわね。まず昨日の例の赤い箱だけれど、開けるとこの霊具が出てきたの。
Oh? The box I found on Makina's futon. Inside it were apparently two stones resembling magatama, comma-shaped ceremonial objects from Japanese antiquity. Also included in the box were several more roughly hewn stones, as well as a lining along the edges consisting of crumpled pieces of thin white paper.
残念ながら箱の中でほとんど割れていたけれど、この一組は無事だったわ。
Ah. Yes, that which appears in the game's logo. They looked almost like a demented version of yin and yang symbols, puzzle pieces that were clearly built to be slotted together. Aiko now held one stone in each hand, and was motioning them toward one another as if to drive that point home.
霊具というのはね、簡単に言えば死者の思いが込められたもののことで、物に閉じ込められた霊、またはその生前の記憶が持つ者に永遠と泣き言を語りかけてくる愉快なものよ。
Wonderful.
私はこう見えて無類の霊具コレクターでもあるの。
Kishinuma and I briefly locked eyes again. We shared the same look of bewilderment. Aiko's personality was much more twisted than either of us had initially perceived it to be.
この子の意志を読もうとするとね、呪わしい声と一緒におさげの少女や廃校の風景が見えてきたのよ。で、気になったからこのカメラに。
At this, she produced an old instant camera and placed it on the table in front of us.
私の念を写してみたの。それがその写真。
A photo of the image in your mind.
私がこの霊具を使ってその時の今現在を念写したものよ。過去や未来の時間を超えた念写は私にはできないから。
I examined the photograph in greater detail, and a chill ran down my spine. There was absolutely no denying what it depicted.
そんな。
I was actually shaking.
篠崎幸子を失ったあの学校は私たちが逆打ちで脱出した際に崩壊したはず。
でも寸前のところでとどまったってところかしら。私に語りかけてくる声の主がまだいるのかもね。
Aiko motioned toward the photo in my hand.
例えば写真の女の子とか誰かしらね、この子。
The answer was beginning to dawn on me. A sudden cold sensation exploded through my body, and I shuddered, as if trying to shake off the encroaching realization.
くっそ、あの地獄みたいな場所がまだ存在してるってのかよ。
Kishinuma leaned forward. The conversation was clearly beginning to engage him a lot more than it had been.
その天神小学校、いえ、学校の形をしたあの異空間だけれど、ナホちゃんに紹介した手前、私も気になって調べていたの。あの異空間の正体はね、涅槃という死後の世界に近い磁場なのよ。
A new nirvana.
普通はこの世とは別の次元に存在するものなのだけれど。
涅槃？
ええ、篠崎義恵については知っているわよね。
はい。
篠崎の家、義恵の診療所に黒の本と呼ばれる魔導書、ブック・オブ・シャドウズがあったことも。
はっ。はい。
Why? How could she know about that? A million thoughts, a million questions were running through my head. I was speechless. All I could do was sit there and hear her out. Oh. It was like a muffled scream or a moan of agony. The sound you make when you want to make a sound but are barely able to. That one was a little more forceful, accompanied by thrashing. It caused the nearby table light to fall over and roll along the ground.
あなた、落ち着いて、お願い。
This was Yoshi Shinazaki's clinic, and Yoshi herself was on top of her husband, holding him down with both her hands. She continued her Shinto purification chant. To prevent Seiju from biting off his own tongue, he had been gagged with a towel. Needless to say, he wasn't looking particularly well. Not far from where this was occurring, Sachiko stood aghast, trembling as she watched the proceedings with hesitant, sidelong glances. Seiji, still collapsed on the floor, was clearly suffering. His body was bent into a most unnatural shape, and he was fervently clawing at his neck. It was said, didn't it? I remember it saying that, like, the men that marry into the Shinazaki family end up suffering from these, like, really bizarre and grisly fates or something like that. Sachiko's father screamed through his gag, foam beginning to froth out from its edges. He was going to cyanosis. Ghostly images of Shinazaki from ages past smiled down upon the event from the ceiling, laughing and mocking his suffering. Worse still, some of the women had traditionally blackened teeth, giving their smiles an unintentionally sinister edge. The atmosphere within the room was heavy, as if spirits occupied every empty corner, dancing and flitting about freely and joyously. Seiji's body sharply bent and began convulsing.
アルマセル・ハライドの狼たち、あなたしっかり。ミオヤの御霊様、お願いです、連れて行かないでください。
Her great-grandmother, Sierra, the head of the Shinozaki family, was among the black-teethed women, laughing joyously at Seiji's suffering.
お父さん、お父さん。
His voice began to weaken, and his convulsions began to lose strength. Finally, the last spark of life had left his body. His eyes rolled back into his head, and all movement ceased.
お父さん、息してないよ。
Sachiko looked up, eyes glazed over with tears. Yoshi, too, was stricken with grief and despair.
霊能力者の血筋、篠崎の者と結婚した夫は必ず早々の死を遂げる。呪われた家の運命に抗えなかった義恵は心ない者たちから守るよう篠崎の家に託されていた禁忌の本に手をつける。それが黒の本、ブック・オブ・シャドウズ。愛する者を失う、そのことを恐れるあまり黒魔術に頼ったの。まさに荒唐無稽でバカな話よね。義恵自身もすがれるものなら何でもいい程度にしか思っていなかったと思うわ。
So did she too try to bring him back through that book of shadows?
ところがまさか信じられないことが起こる。
Continued listening, unknowingly stroking the wound on my thigh as unpleasant memories of my own foolish run-in with black magic resurfaced.
義恵の体に流れる篠崎の血筋、その強い霊力に想像もつかない何かが呼応してしまった。それは
I instantly knew what she was going to say.
義恵の術で本の中から呼び覚まされた何か。それは涅槃。未来永劫、死者と共にいられる場所、死後の世界を切り取った空間がこの世に生まれてしまったの。
A new dimension cut from the netherworld itself. One could coexist with the dead for all eternity. So that was the dimension that heavenly host that we were spirited away to
半分
was.
正気を失っていたのね。一人娘の幸子を現世に残して、自分は夫の魂と共に生涯をそこで添い遂げようとした。ランド・オブ・コープス。ところが涅槃には意志があり、義恵の手でコントロールできるものではなかったの。
I knew that all too well. Just like Yoshi, I experienced my own tragic failure with black magic at the Shinozaki clinic.
黒魔術には障害反動がある。夫の魂はバラバラに飛散し、義恵の命も消えかけた。 自分の愚かな行為を悔やみながら呼吸を止めようとしたその時、底なしに霊能力の強い一人娘幸子が涅槃を丸ごと体の中に飲み込んだの。
幸子が。
The poor girl collapsed to the floor, violently thrashing about as the weight of an entire dimension crushed her from the inside. This action had saved her mother's life, certainly, but death would have surely been preferable. Picking herself up, Yoshi rushed to her daughter's side in tears.
幸子、さっちゃん、あなたお母さん死なないで、お母さん。
Both parent and child were bawling, pain mixing with relief, mixing with pain again. The little girl buried her face into Yoshi's bosom and just cried and cried. Yoshi grasped her tightly in both arms, tears streaming down her face uncontrollably. By this point, Sachiko's body had begun producing a dark blue aura.
ごめんね、さっちゃん。ごめんね。お母さん間違ってた。お母さんにはあなたがいるわ。もうあなたを置いていこうだなんて思わないから。
あなたも知っての通り、幸子も篠崎家当主直系の血を引くサラブレッド。義恵を超えるほどの霊能力を持っていたのね。涅槃を丸ごと体内に封じ込めるなんてものすごいことよ。
Aiko took a big noisy sip from her coffee mug.
当時ほとんど最強の霊能者だったんじゃないかしら。まだほんの小さな子供だったけれど。
でもその幸子が死んでしまって。
そう、保健医義恵の転落事故と同時に幸子が行方不明になった50年前のあの事件。
あれは校長による殺人事件でした。
やはりそうなのね。校長が余計なことをしでかしたおかげで幸子の中に吸い込まれて封印されていた涅槃が復活し、あの異空間天神小学校が生まれてしまったのよ。
Probably because the school was the site of Sachiko's violent demise, that her nirvana took on its form.
ま、とはいえ復活した涅槃も資料として蘇った幸子の力で再び抑制されて、やっぱりその支配下に置かれていたようだけれど。
幸子がいろんな力を使えたのもその涅槃の影響だったのかしら。
This was all starting to make a sick sort of sense. The pieces were falling into place and painting an absolutely awful picture. I shuddered to myself as I considered
現
it.
在はあなたたちが脱出の際に幸子を取り除いてしまったから、涅槃は再び暴走状態になっているのよ。
なくなってしまえばよかったのに、あんな危険な場所。
This entire conversation was a roller coaster of emotions for me. At this point, I was just angry. Angry at everyone involved in this whole ordeal, myself included.
さて、ここで少し突飛な話をするわよ。ついてきてね。
はい。
死んだ友達にまた会いたい？
That certainly got our attention. We both perked our heads up
涅
immediately.
槃で死んだ霊は成仏できずに囚われ続けるというわ。お友達の魂だってまだあそこにいるかもしれない。実はね、黒の本ブック・オブ・シャドウズにはいろんな魔術が書かれているの。ヨシエの使った涅槃を生み出す術の他にも反言の術というものもある。
Yeah, wasn't that the one that Ayumi attempted before? Yeah.
命を無理やり戻すなんて敬虔な宗教家に言わせれば神のおぼし飯に背く背徳の行為だと言われそうだけれどね。
は
I'd performed that spell, the very one Aiko was describing. It took hours, failed miserably, and killed my sister. All at once, the guilt returned. I lowered my head solemnly. Aiko grinned at me, and I had this sinking suspicion it was because she somehow knew what I was thinking. Though I couldn't be sure, and I certainly didn't know how she would.
けれどそんなものはクソくらいよね。冒涜も破壊も何でも来いよ。死んだ友達を生き返らせたいんでしょ。だったらあの本を探し出し天神小学校でもう一度あの術を行えば成功する可能性は飛躍的に上がるんじゃないかしら。
Within heavenly
おいあん
foes.
た、何無責任なこと言ってやがんだ。またヤバいことになったらどうすん。
I didn't exactly mean to interrupt Kishinuma, but quite honestly, I didn't even realize he was talking. I was too focused on what Aiko had just said.
あなたは知っているんですね。私と中島さんの吉江の家での失敗を。
Aiko tilted her head at me, that same wry smile creeping across her face. She'd gone from cold and emotionless to knowing and expressive in a mere instant. I'm gonna take that as a
あの
yes.
時のことは夢幻だったと思っていま
I
す。
don't think we really believe it was happening. So it was like,
ありえないものを見てありえない体験をして私はおかしくなっていたってしてはいけないこと、あんなこともう忘れたいの。
でも現実だった。
Aiko pointed to the scar on my neck, then went one step further and lightly brushed it with her hand. I could feel that touch deep within my soul. I finally found myself swallowing my next breath, practically choking on air.
いい？人が本来触れることすらできない世の常識の裏側にあなたは手を突っ込んだのよ。今さら逃げられると思う？
I looked down again, trying my best to avoid Aiko's gaze.
私にそんなことが。
When I started crying, I raised my head again, intent on looking deep into Aiko's eyes as she answered my question, but she looked so blurry through my tears. I could tell, though, she was smiling at me. It was that same expression, her new standard.
そんなことって何？
みんな
うんうん。何？あなたの口からちゃんと聞きたいな。どうしたいの？
生き返ら
よく言えました。
Aiko patted my head as one might a dog's after a successfully performed trick.
黒の本が生み出すのは 魔女の英知が起こす奇跡よ。それは運命をもねじ曲げる力。
Yeah, I don't know about her. The Grimoire.
たとえそれが確定した運命であろうともね。あなたは強力な霊能者の家系、篠崎家の末裔。日野江さんがいない今、これはあなたにしかできないことかもしれない。
My confidence was being bolstered by the minute, although in retrospect that was likely Aiko's aim. Nonetheless, if there was still something I could do for my friends.
だけど肝心のブックオブシャドウズがどこに行ったのかもわからないし、それに
幸子を失った天神賞には幸せの幸子さんのおまじないではもういけない。
そうだと思います。あの学校で菅野由紀ちゃんという女の子に聞きました。
Aiko once again placed the bluish-white Magatama stones from the box in either hand, this time fitting them together, though not quite the way they were supposed to interlock.
そこでこれよ。
それは一体。
ものすごい霊力を持ってる。さすが篠崎の霊具ね。声が教えてくれたわ。これは幸せの石。
幸せの石。
I leaned forward to spite myself. The name sent a shiver down my spine, but now that I'd heard it, I had to know more.
この石は2つで1つなの。これをパズルのようにくっつけて、涅槃よ、死人を迎えよと唱えれば、触れている者みんながいつでも天神小学校へ飛べるわ。
We both flinched at her chant, but Aiko just smiled. She must have intentionally oriented the stones the wrong way so the charm wouldn't activate.
戻る時も同じ。不思議でしょ。この子が教えてくれたのよ、この方法。
But my focus was elsewhere. Without a doubt, the items Aiko now held in her left hand were extraordinarily dangerous. Possibly the most dangerous, horrific objects in the entire world. However, while Aiko was ogling them with her left hand, her right was feeling around for something in her breast pocket. She slowly removed it, producing an old black and white photograph. When had she taken that? It was the same photograph I'd seen at the Makina Shinozaki's house the previous night. Oh, that... It depicted a young Yoshi alongside her mother and Makina.
10代だった篠崎義恵はおばのマキナのことを慕ってよく家に遊びに行っていたそうよ。世界的に有名な霊能師の家系である篠崎家、ここならとヤゴーラ教会の生き残りヤゴーラのオキナが危険だからとマルトゥバから盗み出してきたブック・オブ・シャドウズを預けに来たんだけれど、それが揃うと危ないからと石はマキナが、本はヨシエが預かって保管することに決めたそうよ。
Yagora Society, Martubas. I'd never heard these terms before at all. And then there's that damn Book of Shadows again. Why did that have to keep coming up?
あなたたちはあの学校から篠崎幸子を取り除いた。それによって大きな可能性が広がったわ。これまでのような一方通行ではなく現世に戻ってくることができる。この世のものではない異空間心霊スポットが生まれているの。
Oh. She thrust the ever after stones toward me triumphantly and continued to make her pitch, growing more excited by the second. I was legitimately speechless. What could I say?
わかるかしら。まさにあの場所は宝の山よ。これまで眉唾、嘘800と笑われていた霊魂の世界への扉が開いたの。世界中のオカルト研究が一気に加速するわ。私はね、商売としてあの空間へ人を連れて行くツアーコンダクターをやろうと思うの。
Oh, really? What could possibly go wrong? Kishinuma and I both reacted to this preposterous suggestion with a start. She couldn't possibly be serious, could she?
ナホちゃんのブログからは片白のデータは削除したし、あの手段ではもう飛べない。行く方法は私しか持っていない。
What could she possibly have been thinking? I wanted to stop her at once. I wanted to take those stones and break them right there on the spot before anyone else got hurt. But
私はね、ツアーを運営するにあたって安全を確保したいの。あゆみちゃんはお友達の霊を探したいでしょ。だったらあの空間の再調査は共通の目的にならないかしら。
Aiko leaned in as she spoke. Her breath, scented with the sugary sweetness of the extravagant desserts we were eating, tickled my nose.
ねえ、あゆみちゃん。私と一緒にもう一度天神小学校に行ってくれない？本来は片白を引きちぎる方法でツアーをやろうと思っていたんだけど、こんな便利なアイテムが見つかっちゃったんだもの。これはもう運命よ。私やるわ。商売にする。
Aiko seemed like she was on top of the world. But that just made me all the more disgusted with her.
どうかしら。
On the other hand, she was offering me a chance to save our lost friends. And however remote that chance may have been, it stacked the odds frustratingly in her favor. I still couldn't just say yes, but I also couldn't say no. Honestly, I resented Aiko for putting me in this position. I glared at her for a moment before I said anything.
すぐに答えを出せるわけがないでしょ。考えさせてください。
I'd almost forgotten Kishinuma was there. Sudden waves of guilt washed over me. He had an absolutely incredulous look on his face. I couldn't bear to see it, so I looked away.
ブックオブシャドウズだってどこにあるかわからないし、そもそもその石だって本当にそんな力があるかもわからないじゃないですか。実際に試したわけじゃないのでしょ。
Did she? She oriented the two stones so they'd form a perfect yin-yang symbol, then slotted them together once again. Immediately, the stones began glowing with a bluish-white hue, and a stream of energy started to form around her.
マジかよ。
Aiko continued smiling and looked directly into my eyes.
いいわ。ゆっくり考えて。この石はもちろんまだ試していないからどれだけ危険かわからないしね。
She slowly separated the two stones as she said this, and the energy surrounding her dissipated.
篠崎家の血筋、篠崎牧菜の家で発見されたんだもの。きっと信憑性も霊言も新たかな霊具に違いないわ。
すげえな。ちょっと見せてくれよ。
Kishinuma didn't wait for an answer. He grabbed the Ever After stones from Aiko's hands and began examining them carefully.
あの箱の中にこんなものが入ってたとはな。あんたさ、まさかこの石を独り占めしようなんて考えてねえよな。
Aiko seemed taken aback by the question. way to go, Kishinumi. You managed to catch her off guard.
これを見つけられたのは半分は篠崎が体張ったおかげなんだろ。
Aiko seemed to ponder these words for a moment.
じゃあお互い勝手に行けないように一つずつ持っていましょうか。
わかりました。ちょうだい、岸沼くん。
おう。
Kishinuma plopped one of the stones in my hand, then slipped the other back into the drawstring pouch. Aiko had brought them in and closed it up.
うん。
He then casually handed the pouch back to its rightful owner.
その気になったら連絡をちょうだい。そうね。サービスとしてブックオブシャドウズの捜索は私も手伝ってあげるわ。無料でね。
Aiko flashed us the biggest, most gregarious smile I could think I'd ever seen.
あの本さえ見つかれば一緒に行ってくれるのよね、あゆみちゃん。
I closed my eyes and gave something like a half-hearted half nod, lowering my head without raising again. It was interpreted as a yes, but I'm not sure I meant it that way.
ぐっと。じゃあここは私が出しておくわね。
Aiko got up and grabbed the check.
いえ、私も出します。
I took out my wallet. I had no desire to owe this person anything. Aiko just smiled.
それじゃ割り勘ってことで。そうそう。これは私からのプレゼント。
Aiko handed her thoughtograph to me.
嫌だわ。そんなに構えないで。これは無料で差し上げるわ。だから安心して。
最低だよ、あの人。
なあ。
鈴本さんや篠原さん、森重くん、ゆい先生、みんなのことが終わったらこの石はすぐに壊すから。
おう。その意見には俺も同感だ。両方ともぶっ壊す案だがな。
As he'd been waiting for his cue, Kishinuma pulled the other stone from his pocket. Huh?
岸沼くん？
あの学校のヤバさも知らねえで浮かれてやがったからな。こっそりいただいてきたぜ。
Oh, did he pull a
岸
little...
沼くん、すごい！
Did he pull a switcheroo?
緊急事態によりやむなしだ。けどよ、篠崎。こう言っちゃなんだが、生き返らせるとか鈴本たちのことはもう考えない方がいいんじゃないか。無茶ばっかしてお前がまた死ぬ思いするとかよ。鈴本も結衣先生も篠原も森重もみんなよ、そんなこと望んでねえと思うんだ。
でもそうじゃないかもしれない。
いい加減にしろ、篠崎。サトシや中島がどんだけお前のこと心配してると思ってんだ。
ごめんなさい。でもお願い、岸沼くん、もう少しだけでいいから私の気の済むまでやらせてお願い。
行くよ。いいか、一人じゃダメだぞ。こっちは俺が預かっとくからな。
Aww.
大丈夫だ。
gaze up to meet Kishinuma's. My eyes must have looked like saucers, windows into a mind full of worries, ideas and fears spurred by this unexpected turn of
な
events.
んかあったらすぐ連絡しろよ。前みたいに目つぶって突っ走って勝手に死にそうになってんじゃねえぞ。俺だってお前一人くらい守れる自信はあんだからよ。
Kishinuma patted me on the head reassuredly as he said this, and I had no idea how to react. I felt warm and safe, but also a little annoyed, much like a younger sister being simultaneously comforted and scolded by her big brother. All I could say in response was, I could feel my eyes bulging from my head, opened as far as my eyelids would allow. I mentioned how I must have appeared to Kishinuma, who was momentarily embarrassed.
んじゃそろそろ帰るとするか。
Okay, finally, after that huge info dump there. Where do I... Where do I... Or, wait, is there a... Wait... Oh, tell me there's still... No, there's not a save point for... Damn it! Okay, give me a few minutes.